Hey, boy. Come on. Whoa. Jeez, bro. Jeez, bro. What fuck? What are you doing? Put the zook off. What are you doing? Alright. That works. Hey, bud. Little butty. Oh my god, there's like peanut shit everywhere. Okay. Oh, that works. Took off. What are you doing? Yeah, I do this. What the fuck? Whoa! What the hell? What the fuck is going on here? It's a fat ass little mound. The fuck? So there's a mound there now. Well, I can see where squirrels bury their nuts. Right there, right there. Let's look at our spot right there. Is there other mounds in here? Oh my god, there is. There's some there. Oh my lord, the squirrels are fucking stuffing their shit all over in here. Oh my goodness. I wonder what the hell are you... what could be in there? Got a couple nuts like right here. Hey. Oh, I guess one fell in there. Hey, quit sniffing around, bro. There you go. Let those all go. Look at you. Hey. Stop it. Stop it. Hey. Quit scavenging, bro. Spot here. now. More. Almost out anyway. Okay. Some construction or some shit going on. What the fuck? I am totally upside down. What in the hell? What in the hell? Well, at least it looks like I am. Alright, that fixed it. That fixed it. Oh shit, the crows. Now all the birds are circling. Oh shit. I don't even gotta do shit. I'm surrounded by birds. Utterly surrounded by birds right now. Crows, chickadees, scrub jays. They were all noticing that I was putting nuts down, and now that I'm done, now they're all like, kind of wanting me to vacate the premise so they can be like, "Yo, give me some nuts." Not these little guys though. They're already going after him. Look at that little guy, little round fat ass. Let's go pick up one of these entire nuts. Oh, got a little one. Zukov! 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 Hey! Get over here, bro. You little jerk, what are you doing? Don't be scavenging in the neighbor's yard. What's wrong with you? Look at you. Why are you doing that? It's like a whole roost of them up in this tree over here. I can hear them. A lot of them. There has to be at least like a dozen or so of, I don't know what type of birds, but something of sorts. I know there were some chickadees over here. I don't know what these birds are. Hey, Zukov, get back here. Zukov, get over here now. What are you doing? No. No, no, no. You don't do that. Little psycho. Alrighty. Look at you, crazy. Here, up there. Now we're in. Alright, stand right there real quick. Well, Zuko, come here. Come here, bud. Come here. Bro, come on. What are you doing, buddy? Look at you. Come here. You suck. You suck, bro. You suck. Do-do-do. Do this. There we go. Just about to move. Zuko. Here's some of that for you. Ooh. What? What's with your face? What is with this cuteness of yours? Why must you be this way? Just too cute for your own goddamn good. Put that tea over here so I can have that. I saw your booba. Didn't care about me, so I saw your booba. I saw your booba. Zuka. Look at you, buddy. You should have like these like piercing big ol' eyeballs, this little wagging tail, this whole shebang. Like, it's ridiculous. Look at you. Stand. Stand up. Stand up. Oh, good boy. You stand up too good. Okay. Oh, this is a sweet little baby. I'm gonna turn this on. Want to make sure this is on. Stop being adorable. Stop it. Stab. Alrighty. Let's see what's going on for today. Socialist Party wins surprise victory in Portugal. Portugal going socialist? Well, just another one to add to the goddamn list of fucking commies. I do tell you what. Got these sons of bitches out in Venezuela. Got the Cuba. Then you got the goddamn Iran. Yes, I tell you what, brother. It's just spreading now. They got Portugal. You got Portugal. It's like, goddamn, son. It's like that comedy is spreading to all these random ass, like, fucking, like these Hispanic countries and shit, brother. I mean, there's something about it, you know. It's something about the countries that they just absorb this communism, socialism thing. I tell you what, brother. It's like, oh my god. It's actually pretty cool information, but I guarantee you suddenly they're gonna slowly but surely be like, wait a minute, Portugal socialists? What? What? Not on my watch. Not on my earth. There's only room for 3 socialist nations we demonize, and Portugal ain't one of them. It's like, oh my god. China, Venezuela, and the Iranians. Those are 3 common countries that we hate. Can't add Portugal to that list. What the fuck is this nonsense? Weird podunk common bullshit. Goddamn Portugalians are fucking, getting socialist. What is this nonsense?
Portugal's socialist government have won a surprise majority after a snap election was called.
A majority? Oh, goddamn, they're just all embracing socialism over there. Son of a bitch. Goddamn communists taking over.
Why this may not be as great of a story as it may appear for those on the left, but before I get there, let me play for you a bit of the speech here from Prime Minister Antonio Costa.
Uma maioria absoluta não é.
God damn it, it's Portuguese, of course. An absolute majority doesn't mean absolute power.
Não é.
It doesn't mean
sozinho.
to govern alone.
É uma responsabilidade.
Okay, whatever.
E governar é
It means to govern for all the Portuguese, blah blah blah.
Todas e todos os portugueses. E assim esta maioria será.
So this majority will be a majority of dialogue
Com todas as forças políticas
with all the political parties in Parliament
Assembleia da República,
in all Portuguese. What?
Os portugueses na sua pluralidade.
All right.
Majority of wait, that didn't even sound like a good way to try to phrase like, the majority doesn't mean absolute power and majority rule and whatever. But then they're like, so we're gonna have our majority power basically be about talking. It's like, I would imagine there needs to be at least a little bit of a balance. Like, yeah, the talking part's important, but also like the actual like kind of governing part is too a little bit.
The Socialist Party in Portugal is a center-left party, and this election was triggered after the parties to the left of the Socialist Party would not support their budget bill. Which gets me to why this may not be as great of a story as it may sound on the surface, because when you go back and look at this story I covered in November, Portugal's Socialist Party passes amazing pro-worker reforms. A lot of that is likely due to the pressure they had from the left. So in November, they passed reforms including making it illegal for your employer to message you after work hours, making employers have to pay for increased expenses for working from home, and banning employers from monitoring workers at home. All fancy.
Nice. I mean, all in all, these, like, those ideas don't even, like, sound bad when it comes to reform, but it's because of that pressure from the, funny enough, from the left of it. Like, if you got, like, I guess, a socialist party that's somehow central, okay, Portugal's a little weird about that, I guess. But, I mean, if it took, like, to get the actual more, like, left positions through with the actual pressure, what does that kind of say? That mere talking doesn't actually really get that much shit done, but actually putting pressure does? Like, and actually, moving kind of out of the electoral element to push in a more direct action to actually put that, like, pressure on, saying, hey, like, we ain't gonna support you electorally unless you fucking do the shit that we want fucking done. So here's some list of things we want. And it's like, if at least, at least some of the shit's done, then it's like, alright. You got a little bit more of a support, but that's, I think that's kind of what I'm seeing there. It's like they actually look at the fucking pressure to their left, at least in their party, and like, we should probably, like, listen to them. We should listen to the pressure that's trying to make us go further with things. Not over here, though. Not in America, it's just like, oh, there's pressure on our left about things? We'll just kind of oppress them, suppress their message. And we'll just, like, totally capitalize on it and just virtue it. Make it a bunch of pandering.
Passed those again.
Over Portugal, they actually get results.
Would they have passed those if they didn't have to work with the parties to the left of them? Because in this recent election, Portugal, or the Socialist Party, was able to win by cutting votes from those parties to their left. So a little more on that here from CBC in terms of who gained and who lost in this election. So the center-right Social Democrats came a distant second at below 30% of the vote, according to provisional results, against the Socialist around 42%. The far-right Chega emerged as the third largest parliamentary force, making a big leap from just one seat in the previous legislature to at least 11. And the two far-left parties paid the price, losing more than a half of their seats, according to exit polls.
Damn.
So this is why I think it's very likely this party now will no longer have to work to the left of where I guess they normally would be, because they don't need the votes from the left-wing parties. They don't need the left bloc or the communists anymore. So they will likely now govern more to.
Well, good word. That's what about bite. It's about bite. It's supposed to have into the liberties, none of this crazy ass pinko combo shit. I mean, it just kind of, I think this also kind of just shows that there's just, you know, on a general kind of level, at least in some of the more modern nations, like in the West and shit, there's been a shift towards the right, especially in places like in the US, UK, and Poland and shit. But then you got, like, Portugal, at least ostensibly has, like, a left party, a socialist party, but it ends up being just more of a center-left, kind of co-opted type of, you know, duopoly, kind of like over here, but at least, you know, with the ostensibility of, like, we got multiple parties, wink. It was going to stop Portugal, yeah. Because they just had a surprise victory type of thing with, like, the social party over there. But at least when it comes to some of the details, it's not like some big victory overall when all's said and done, just considering the actual, like, position of where the party's going with.
Parties. So that alliance,
which is going further right,
was known as the Guernica, or improvised solution, and it finally collapsed when the communist and left bloc joined right-wing parties in rejecting the budget bill after weeks of tense negotiations. Costa, who has served as prime minister since 2015, had accused his erstwhile Guernica partners of behaving irresponsibly by voting against his budget. And in hindsight, maybe they should have supported it. Now, if they didn't support the budget, then they don't support the budget. But now they have less power because of this election. Now, a little more here. So, despite the seemingly unstable nature of his minority government, Costa has won plaudits for turning around Portugal's post-crisis economy, reversing unpopular austerity measures, and overseeing one of the most successful COVID vaccination programs in Europe. And by the way, he did that while having to work with parties to his left. So now you see the makeup of the parties here. I'm not sure if this is a clear vision of it, but here.
Portugal, you could do in drug and not go to jail, just makes you rehab it worse. Yeah. Like, they've decriminalized all drugs over there, so part of, you know, their society is that, you know, if you happen to be doing drugs, then they don't send you to jail, they actually send you to rehab. They treat it as a human issue. But there's actually, like, some election results here that shows. So, in the parliamentarian, okay, so it shows 117 seats for the Socialist Party, 6 for the Communist Party, and 5 for the Left Bloc. And then there's 4, I guess, just unaffiliated. Then 10 Liberal Initiative. Oh my god, what a horrible name for a thing. And then there's 12 for the Chega. And then 76 for the Social Democrats. So.
Socialists, you have 76 Social Democrats, so that's the center-right party.
So basically, like kind of socialistic-y ideas in one party, and then just like kind of just center-right, right-leaning social democracy, suck them shit. You know, it's pretty much like what's going on in Portugal. I mean, I guess it's definitely way better than the politics here. Like, overall, it sounds like. I mean, at least their Socialist Party is ostensibly kind of socialist, at least. And it is, at least as it stands right now, the dominant party. But that doesn't necessarily mean much. Like, you can have a big-ass party, but then have, like, 10 different, like, miniature factions within that party. It's kind of the problem when it comes to, like, one party or just only, like, a couple party type of political systems. because, like, I mean, if you because if you, let's say you have like the, kind of like in the USSR where you have like the all one communist party or some shit, right? Where it's pretty much like the unified like communists and leftist socialist and shit. But I mean, it's like, well, I guess it does sound like a bad idea, but the problem is that there's going to be a lot of different fucking elements of disagreement and political instability, power grabs, amongst other things, because everyone, a lot of different people have different ideas of where that all should go. So, I mean, it's why honestly having either no parties or a big multi-party system where just like coalitions and shit like that, it seems to be better in my mind. As less likely for like full-on pure power grab, just like influence and corruption shit just on one party, because if you have like multiple parties, they're just not at all that. Basically, they're basically just like, all right, we have our parties that we have our primary focuses, like we got like an environmental party, we got like, a labor worker party, we got this, like the whole shebang. And they have different coalitions where they all hyper-focus on like one or two issues. Like you can have like an environmental worker coalition where it's like the workers and the environmental parties, get together and focus on pro-worker environmental reforms, shit like that. It just seems like a little bit better of a cohesive way to fucking get shit done versus just having everything lumped into one or two parties. Because then it just, I don't know, it just seems like things fare better when I see that in other systems versus a duopoly or a one-party state. Early ass stream. I figured I'd do like try to do them in two at a time. Maybe have them like spread out throughout the day. I'm gonna try to do these more often, at least when it comes to the morning ones.
Half their support.
/ afternoon.
And 5. One last thing, just to show you, Portugal has done a really good job at vaccinating their entire country. So this New York Times piece was back in October. In Portugal, there's virtually no one left to vaccinate.
That was back in October. I'm sure that's not like absolutely 100% sure. I'm sure there is people that can get boosted and shit. But I mean, when you when you pretty much have like, we pretty much don't really have people to vaccinate. Like pretty much everyone who could or can't get vaccinated pretty much is. It's like, damn. I mean, overall, the story isn't necessarily like the absolute most positive fucking thing in the world, but I mean, I think this just kind of is reminding me that Portugal's just, regardless, just better with this shit.
Up at this now.
They just
Due to
are.
Omicron, they're still seeing a massive rise.
Like I was saying it like the other day. Like I mean, it's like honestly, when it comes to like so much shit, like pretty much most countries are just better than us. They just are. Like even the ones that quote unquote people don't give a fuck about, like Slovenia, Croatia, Portugal, or whatever the fuck. People don't really think about these countries on a general level. At least when it comes to the American-centric view of things, they'll think more about like Russia, UK, France, or China, all these other more major countries. They'll never really think about the smaller ones. But it's like point being, it's like even those smaller ones are just better than us. Even with their fucking faults and their fucking problems. Like, just straight up. Because usually, even with the problems that they have, they manage those problems better than the U.S. does, and are not as bad as the U.S. with these fucking issues. Just straight up. They don't have our freedoms like we do. Oh, I love that line. Oh, well, they're not, like, free like us. Like, bitch. I mean, like, how? Oh, because they don't have, like, written in on a piece of paper, like, oh, you can say whatever you want, basically, within reason, essentially, with the First Amendment. It's like, yeah, well, you can. I mean, for the most part. It's like, yeah, you can't say, like, certain shit or whatever the fuck, I guess a little bit more so. But so what? It's like, uh-oh, you can't, like, boast about Nazism in Germany, or else you would straight up go to prison, probably. It's like, okay, so what? Like, I'm supposed to give a fuck? I guess just for the whole virtue of, like, the expression thing, sure, but, yeah. So, yeah, let me just, like, defend a Nazi in Germany trying to be like, can I please fly the swastika again? Yeah, it's like, that's a smart move. I mean, I suppose, on his part, just because, I imagine the results would probably, be very positive for him. You've got your freedom, Ignal. It's okay. I mean, honestly, the main reason why I have my freedoms here is because of mostly my state. Like, in America, it's like, I ain't free to fucking smoke the shit I'm smoking right now. In the state that I am, I can. I suppose America's freedoms to let the states do what they want has allowed you to do that, but like, I mean, like, you have to, like, do so many fucking, like, hoops and jumps to fucking, you know, like, defend the quote-unquote freedoms they actually have and shit. When people get arrested for smoking a plant and fucking, you know, could get shot, you know, like 100 times by a fucking cop just because they didn't play Simon Says Right. The deadly version of it. It's just, like, just stupid fucking shit like that. Oh, and then, like, the mass surveillance state. Oh, you know, totally. And just a lack of choice and corrosion when it comes to your fucking bosses and the companies and where you have to work. Oh, yeah, a lot of freedoms. We don't even have a lottery here. Alabama loses millions in ticket sales to surrounding states because of that. I mean, I kind of have mixed feelings about, you know, state-ran lotteries and shit, but I mean, all in all, I mean, there is some good that kind of comes in with that type of shit. At least when it comes to the funds that can be invested in, that comes in with that. But all in all, the people that usually suffer the most out of that tend to be the poorest, because they think, oh, I could win like $1,000 or some shit if I buy like 2 or 3 of these things. You know, like buy 2 or 3 of these little lotteries. I might win $1,000 with one of them, and you only win like at most like 10. I've always gotten lucky. I've always either gotten my money back out of those things. So if I like spend $2 on one of those little lotto tickets, I usually get like either that $2 back. So I basically just got a free lottery ticket, or it's like $4 or like $10 or $20, but it's usually never more than that. Like, it's small numbers, so it's like, cool, I could buy myself a lunch or something, you know? It's like, alright, I mean, it's whatever. Like, I think I've only gotten 0 like twice out of like the 8 or 9 times I've ever done it, and I haven't done it in years. The small lottos are legit. I once won $500 on a scratcher. Yeah, like, honestly, and that's why I'm a little mixed about it, because honestly, if they made those smaller lottos, I think, more common and more distributed it out, like, obviously, the higher the number, the less chance you're gonna, you know, get a win. Like, you know, if it's $500, then you have like 1 in 100 chance or something like that to probably get that. But like a $20 lotto ticket, you pretty much, like, it's a coin flip. You know, it's like you have a 50-50 chance of probably getting like $20 or something. You know, or just like, you know, or, you know, as you go, like, when you have, like, you know, oh, you buy a $2 lotto ticket or some shit, you know, chance, like, 99% of the time, you're probably going to get $2 back, at the very minimal. I mean, that should just be the guarantee, honestly. And then, you know, after that, it's like you know, you have, like, a 90% chance to get, like, you know, between $4 to $10, you know, somewhere in that margin, and then it's, like, a 70% chance to get, like, 20 to 40, and, you know, so on and so forth. And to get, like, the big lottos, it would be, like, you know, the 5 to 1% chances and shit. Or less, you know, like, just, yeah, you know, it's like the higher the number, obviously, the smaller the percentile, but, like, when it comes to these $500 ones, like, it should actually be a decent chance you win those things. Like, honestly, because I've never won, like I said, more than 20. Go to Vegas and hit it rich on slots. Fuck the slots. That shit's just straight up like a fucking, like, money thieving scheme right there. I'm gonna go to a roulette table, a blackjack table, a poker table. I'm going to, like, actual tables with, like, actual dealers and shit. Like the slots. Ugh. eyes getting a little sleepy. Blackjack, baby, that's where you make it or break it. Honestly, blackjack is pretty easy if you kind of figure out and know how to, play it. It's actually really easy. Basically, you don't really have to, like, at least when it comes to just casually playing blackjack, you don't even have, like, the other players don't mean shit. Like, fundamentally, it's just you and the dealer. Like, that's fundamentally the game. Just because there's other players that happen to be in the same table, that doesn't really mean anything. So, it's just like, unless it's like a tournament, then it does. But outside of that, it's just like, it's just like, pretty much, outside of like what the players are betting, because I think you have to at least, bet the same amount, as the highest bid when it comes to that type of shit. Just don't go over 20. Well, it's 21. You don't want to go over 21. But the sweet spot and the honey spot is 19, 20. Like, if you're like at the 19 and 20 range, you might want to call it, because you're kind of in a sweet spot. Like, honestly, like, even at like 17 or 18, if you're at that number, you're risking it if you take another hit. You know what I mean? Like, all right, I want to call another, card or some shit. It's just like, you're risking it at that point. Yeah, I've lost, some big bets, on some online games of blackjack because I've done shit like that. Where it's like, I have like 16, it's like, all right, I just need a 5 or less and I'll be okay. And it ends up being like a fucking 9 or something. It's like, no! It's just like, son of a bitch. Just have good luck stat and you'll be okay. Well, you can't have that in reality. Like, I can't, like, I didn't set my good luck stat. I'd imagine my good luck stats are probably average, honestly. Because I have good luck in a lot of areas, but at the same time, I don't in other areas. So it kind of varies a little. Like, I seem to have luck on, at least on an average level. I mean, honestly, like, I would say I have good luck usually, most, like, on a, like, more than not, but, like, it really kind of comes in, like, in intervals, and it's not even consistent either. Like, sometimes I'll just have kind of like a streak of good luck for a while, and then it just stops, just for like, for like another long while. So I have like, maybe a week, of like, all right, I got some good luck, got some good shit going on, things ain't bad. And then for like the next 2 weeks, it's just shit. It's just like, I mean, it's just some shit like that, and it's like, man. But then it'll be like a month where, my luck is actually alright, things are doing pretty good or some shit, and then it's like, another month where it's not necessarily like shit, but my luck ain't really great, this is kind of meh. And then it's like a week of shit, and then it's like another week of good luck, and it's like, it's never consistent. It's like, god damn it. Like, right now, I'd say I'm not in a phase where I have some good luck right now, because, my hour cuts is shit, and, because of that, kind of have the budget, because money ain't really as, flowing as it normally would, because of that shit, so it's like, looking on the more side at the moment, but it's like, give it like another week or so, and it will be again. It's just, it's not consistent. And if not within a week or two, it'll probably be within like a month. How brutal will that be if we set our little stats for the rest of our lives as a dumbass baby? I mean, aren't they? Like, our quote-unquote stats are already kind of predetermined by genetics, but then there's other shit as a baby that kind of add to those stats. If we're thinking about, you know, just, you know, like human behaviors, learning, and, you know, being human, just like kind of broken down into, I guess, like the special stats in Fallout or some shit. But when broken down, honestly, like, it, you know, to a certain degree, it makes sense. I mean, honestly, like, those stats, I mean, even in the game, they fluctuate and change. And I think that's also, you know, true when it comes to fucking, you know, like, in reality. Like, the strength one, for example. Like, obviously, as a baby, it's going to be set at, like, a 1. But, you know, like, at your prime age and shit, you know, depending on, you know, your overall, like, you know, workout routine, your work, what you do, you know, how active you are, you know, all these other variables that come into play of just being, just living, you know, and what, you know, whatever you happen to do in that circumstance, you know, your strength will vary. And sometimes it might be at, like, the 5, maybe it might be at a 7 or 8. If you're, like, one of those, like, workout bros, it's probably at, like, a 9 or something, you know? You know, or if you're like one of those Icelandic strongmen, it's probably not just at the max 10, but also like extra boosted stats that make it like 14 or something. You know what I mean? You know, so it's just like, you know, you got, like, so I don't know. Like, I mean, there is at least, you know, a certain degree, you know, like, there's a reason why in the game, you know, they kind of break down these different things about, you know, us as, you know, being human into those stats, because, I mean, while there's holes and it's not accurate by any means, really, obviously, I mean, it's just, I mean, because it's a fucking game, but, I mean, it's still kind of fun to, you know, like, kind of, you know, expand upon. This country already does. The zip code you were born in is the most predictive of life outcomes. Yep. It most certainly is. Like, where you're born in basically predetermines your stats, at least especially socio-economically. But we're just kind of talking about just, like, the human nature of just, like, us, you know, as humans and our behavior. But, yeah, that also plays a role to that, though. Because, like, in the, you know, like, I mean, let's, you know, keep going with this whole Fallout analogy. Because, like, in the Fallout world, while it's not a zip code, where you're born in the Fallout world does, you know, like, predetermine your life outcome. Like, if you're born into a band of raiders, chances are you're probably not going to live long. In fact, you probably won't even live to adult age. You know, but if you're in a town, like, you know, like the, you know, like somewhere in the capital city, or like Megaton or New Vegas or some shit, hell, even Freeside, you might live to a decent age and at least to a young adulthood, and might even, you know, depending on what you do and your outcomes in life and shit, might live to, like, you know, your 20s or 30s, or, you know, maybe even 40s potentially. You know, so it's like, I mean, that's just, you know, within the game and shit. If you're born into the Brotherhood, you will likely be a soldier. Yep. Or a scribe. Or, you know, generally, you know, taking one of the more, you know, especially more prestigious roles within the Brotherhood, because, you know, you want to be, especially within the culture of the Brotherhood of Steel, it's, you know, you want to, you know, be, it's kind of, they're almost Klingon-like. Like, they're about honor and about, you know, like, you know, the pride of, you know, who they are, and kind of like this nationalistic zeal, but, I mean, not really like a nationalism. It's just more of like this, just like cultural supremacy. Just mainly via technology. Like, they have this very strong technological supremacy mindset. And they view anything, you know, that isn't like laser weapons and plasma weapons and shit like that, Gauss rifles, power armor, anything lesser than that is just inferior, Untermensch, fucking, like, obsolete, just not, you know, shouldn't even be considered by fucking people to be using, you know, type of shit. Like, if you got, like, you know, some sort of, like, you know, brass, you know, like, fed shotgun, you know, that you got, or, like, some pipe weapon that you made up in the Fallout, you know, universe, and they look at you, they're gonna look at you as, like, some sort of peasant that, you know, is, like, the equivalent of a fucking mole rat or some shit. It's just, like, they're gonna look at you like, bleh. What are you? Some sort of feral rat? You eat shit in that thing? Get yourself something proper, like Gauss rifle. Get yourself a good proper automatic laser rifle, you goddamn peasant. Yeah, I think at the very minimal, when it comes to just an average person, if you're not necessarily a scribe or a soldier, you're probably accompanying them. You know, like helping them gather technology, supplies, you know, kind of do a lot of the more brunt labor work. In the first game, he argues he never wanted the Brotherhood to hoard tech. He was born out of desperate need to survive. Oh, the founder of them? Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, honestly, like, even, like, Caesar's Legion, you know, to some extent, wasn't necessarily directly born, you know, into what it was, you know, when we saw in New Vegas. It became eventually an amalgamation and pretty much an adaptation and an appropriation, really, you know, of all these other different tribes and all these other different groups, you know, that eventually becomes Caesar's Legion. Or Caesar's Legion, depending on how you describe it. Or I guess depending on where your loyalties lie on which faction. I mean, hell, like, Caesar himself wasn't even necessarily Caesar, you know, before he became that guy. He was a part of the, what were they called? They were at the old Mormon fort in fucking, New Vegas or some shit. I'm forgetting their name, but it used to be part of them. So you can meet Arcanan. NCR through and through, her house is a despot and Caesar is a Roman LARPer. Well, honestly, I respect and actually like Caesar a little bit, because he's not just a LARPer. Like, he's actually, like, a legit, like, philosophical-minded individual. Like, if you actually talk to him, like, in the game, and have a back and forth with him, you really actually kind of, you know, really kind of get to see a little bit about his philosophy. And honestly, having, like, this is why I love New Vegas so fucking much, because, like, the antagonists weren't just like, I'm a bad guy. Like, it was like, you know, I mean, at least initially it seems like that, but once you actually meet these antagonists, they were, like, very deeply philosophically minded individuals. Like, Caesar, I mean, even House as well, you know, despite him being a despot robber baron, basically, that is pretty much a literal fucking mummy. So, it's just like, yeah, I mean, you know, like, I mean, I don't know, I wouldn't necessarily say the NCR either, because they have plenty of faults as well, where they have, like, the equivalent of, like, you know, the big wigs, you know, don't understand what's going on when it comes to, like, the rural, you know, countrysides, and, like, you know, kind of the expansion that, you know, moving out east, you know, when it comes to, like, a lot of the farmers and some of the expeditions, especially with, like, with the Caesar's Legion, you know, Hoover Dam, amongst other different shit. So, like, you know, their fault is essentially the faults of, you know, like, of our modern governments today, of just corruption and bureaucracy, especially when it comes to bigwigs that, you know, just, you know, sit in their fucking ivory towers. Once he dies, what happens? It's obviously going to be civil war between the greatest generals in the Legion, because they're not philosophically minded. I mean, the Legate, he is, but via strength and via war, not in diplomacy and politics. So when you confront him in the battle and beat him when it comes to your skill speech, which, by the way, in order to do that, your speech skill literally has to be 100, or else it's not going to work. But but if you succeed, though, you can basically convince him via you know, like, philosophy and strategy of militaria, can convince him to hold off and actually not continue the fight and push through and wear his troops thin. and he'll actually see the wisdom of your, counter, to what he wants to do, and will actually kind of hold back and focus more domestically, which in a way actually could be a good thing, considering that the Legate is essentially the only other dude in the Legion who would be close enough, aside from yourself, if you go with the faction of the Caesar. Because if you go with Caesar, then Caesar basically notes you as the next heir. You'll rule it after, it implies you rule it after he dies. So, but if not you, would be the Legate. And he would pretty much be the second best bet, but even he would just basically be a total fucking despot and a military strong arm, and it would just be nothing but sheer power grabs from there. And it would just fracture and collapse. Like, Caesar's Legion would legit not last long after him. But, even him, he's still kind of a philosophically minded guy, but there's kind of a reason why there's only one or two of them within the entire Legion, is because you want the rest of them to be kind of dumb brutes that just follow your orders and are obedient. Especially considering the philosophy of Kaiser's Legion. Like, it is a very strong, hyper-obedient, very strict, hierarchical society. I mean, equivalent to, well, like, the despot Roman Empire from at its, peak of when it was the worst, when it came to a lot of this type of shit. Like, the systemic slavery and shit, just literally crucifying people, just, because of their, like, degeneracy or whatever the fuck. Because they're profligates or whatever they called, people that were, deemed subordinates or just deemed, enemies of the Legion. I mean, honestly, all in all, though, like, the Legion were definitely probably more brutal, savage groups out of them. Now, I don't even think the Great Khans were like that. Like, they were just more about, like, peddling drugs and guns. Like, I mean, so it's like they weren't even that brutal. I actually kind of like the Great Khans a little bit. Because they just have, like, this very, cool, like, kind of Mongolian-esque, kind of, like, Far Eastern culture, but melded in with, like, this strong biker culture as well. I mean, it's just really cool. Like, how there's just, like, that blend, and it really works very well. Because even today in modern Mongolia, there will be biker gangs and shit. And those guys look badass. Like, I wouldn't fuck with them. Like, some badass, Mongolian riding a big-ass Harley chopper and shit. Like, I would not fuck with that guy. I mean, it's like, I look at that dude, I'm like, no. I think I'll buy you a beer instead. Sounds like a game more of the Raiders. Well, the Raiders... Well, the Great Khan are a little different. They aren't opportunistic like just your ragtag Raiders. Raiders will just, like, rob people and just, steal off, caravans and shit. The Great Khan will actually see opportunities with potentially being hired guns, being escorts, or, amongst other things. That's what differentiates them from your just kind of average tag Raiders. They're a little bit more opportunistic when it comes to, getting, things that they want, without necessarily just going to full-on bloodshed and shit. Because they know that some of those people, hey, they might need a little pickup, like some medics, in case they actually do meet those raiders that are trying to shoot them, Have you noticed that r/Portland's turned even more conservative the past few weeks? The consensus is now there isn't actually a housing crisis, it's all personal responsibility. I think I know what Reddit post you're talking about, and I saw that Reddit post. And it was honestly slowly infuriating me, so I was just like, I'm getting out of this. It's just like, I'm not gonna, yeah. Ugh. There's more than one. I'm not shocked. I was notified about one of them, And I clicked that, and I just saw the comments on that, and honestly, I'm not surprised it's more than one. Like, that subreddit's basically become like, hey, here's what the cops are doing, and sometimes it's either a mixture of people saying that, you know, that the cops either suck or, oh, well, blah, 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 you know, or whatever the fuck, you know, trying to kind of suck their dick. And then you got, like, you know, this whole personal responsibility bullshit. That's kind of, oh my god. Fucking NIMBYs. People unironically calling the, to elect fascists in Portland also. Jesus fucking Christ. Do you need to work ever open back up? Yeah, I think. But it's kind of been purged a little bit from what I understand. Because the mods, especially the one that went on Fox, did like a little purge thing because they couldn't fucking, you know, accept the ego, like, drop and fail and the embarrassment that they were. Was this last, I like getting everyone on board to help the NCR. Imagine the irony, inferior NCR troopers will feel seen ex-Enclave power armored troopers mowing down CSIS Legion troops. I mean, yeah, that's what I kind of like about the NCR. There is a way to actually kind of get a lot of the different factions on their side. Like, you can get the boomers on their side. You can get Great Khans on their side. There's a lot of different factions you could legit get to be allied with the NCR, especially when the Battle of Hoover Dam hits. Because honestly, like, I mean, out of all the outcomes, either you kind of take things over, or, because hypothetically, you know, depending on how you view your character, you can be like some liberator, you know, or this and that, or, you know, whatever the fuck. You know, but, you know, or the NCR, because, I mean, despite the faults of the NCR, there is at least an ability to, you know, fucking, expand and have a little bit more prosperity, you know, with the NCR, you know, especially when they have a little bit more of a stable grip in the region. But Hoover Dam, and having a total grip on that place, essentially lets you have that. And to have a full grip on it without the CSIS Legion literally having their fort, like, looking over it, you know, it kind of helps, you know, to that stability, because CSIS Legion isn't a threat at that point. So it allows you to, you know, focus more on stabilization and kind of concrete in your presence in the region, thus being able to expand and thus build. Or at least in this case, rebuild. All my liberal friends switched to the GOP over the mask mandate. I'm seriously like, the worst part is the dishonesty. I'm actually progressive, Bo. Yeah, we need to be progressive by ending these mandates so we can get the economy progressing again. I'm progressive, see? But it depends on who your character is. If you're good, I imagine it's a nice place, while if you're evil, I imagine you end up a dictator like House. Yeah. A free independent New Vegas is essentially, depending on how your character, you know, ends up being, you know, that can go one or the other, or be something in between. That honestly, you know, the free independent Vegas outcome honestly more or less depends on how you play your character. If you try to actually be like the good guy and, you know, basically be Jesus for everyone, then it's probably going to be, you know, a pretty decent place. But if you're just like a total piece of shit, then it's probably going to just be miserable. And probably even worse than how you fucking started it. I don't know if he's moaning or farting. I'm always dreaming about. Oh. Bosch is having a talk of Kyle right now. Talking with Kyle about the Russia-Ukraine thing. Is he actually doing that? Or is he doing that later and he just has it in the title?
You know that? Did you know that? I knew that. But you're beautiful. Hey! If you're watching this right now...
I am!
And you're not subscribed to the Bosch Pit, you are a goddamn fool. You're gonna fall prey to a phishing scam any day now, okay? You're gonna get a call
Bosch my Bosch while I Bosch.
Claims to be, you know...
Bosch my Bosch while I Bosch Bosch.
Saying that in
my
order
dude.
to fix
my
your
guy.
computer, he's gonna
my
give you a
dude.
social security number, and you're gonna do it. You're not watching the Bosch Pit? You goddamn fools. Phishing scam?
Whatever.
Phishing.
I turned in at the right time for him to just shill his stuff. Amazing. You said you were talking to Kyle. What happened with that?
Stuff.
Were you doing that, or are you about to? Like, what's going on here?
Metrics on the second channel have actually been doing really, really well.
Did he already do that?
Actually, you know what? You know what, guys?
From the outside. And
yeah, he already did it.
You had this rapid swing from Soviet-style communism to...
Hold on, okay.
...reasonable. And I think that we should have never really expanded it in the first place. And look, I don't want to open Pandora's box here, but NATO's already around, it already exists, and it strikes me as not feasible that it would be dismantled in any real sense. But I don't even think they necessarily should have existed in the first place. Do you disagree with that?
With NATO?
Yeah.
It seemed like a geopolitical inevitability given the state of the Cold War, but I mean, there were a lot of things in the Cold War that I wish hadn't happened. I wish NATO had not been something the West had considered necessary in its time. Likewise for both things, I suppose. Though NATO and the Warsaw Pact weren't perfectly analogous, obviously.
So I guess outside of my thing where I would stop NATO's eastward expansion, it doesn't seem like
Kyle in a storage unit
too much beyond that, other than maybe, like, I think whatever sanctions package you would levy against Russia, I think would maybe be a little more harsh than the one that I would, because I want to try to avoid as much as possible any harm on Russian civilians. I have no problem inflicting harm on the Russian government, Putin, and the oligarchs, but once you start harming the civilians, then I wince, and I think we're being the baddies in that scenario.
Oh, I mean, we're always the baddies. I think in terms of sanctions, I don't know, they're obviously, like, intent and application are difficult to perfectly align. I always thought, like, especially since there are so many Russian oligarchs who do business in the West.
Kylo's in a storage unit provided by the big Celtic conglomerate.
Like government officials and the wealthy, and just like, oh, you have like a vacation house in the US. Oh, you have businesses here. Oh, sorry, no, you don't.
Yeah.
Wrong with it. Take it up with Putin.
Living in Rochester is so expensive that he had to downgrade to a storage unit.
Like they have a functioning democracy anyway, so you make the people angry. It's not going to do anything other than get them all jazzed up for the next war against the imperial.
New York, man.
If you have a
shitty ass fucking,
oil.
Shitty ass shit where you can't even fucking rent the place. You have to go into a goddamn storage unit to live.
Getting their assets frozen by the state. That'd be funny.
Poor Kyle.
I think it'd mostly just be funny, and that's why I wanted to happen.
Yeah, I total agreement on going after the oligarchs. I have no problem with that whatsoever. And one of the reasons why, to tie back in something we talked about a little earlier, I think one of the reasons why the fear of the West is sincere in Russia is that, when the Soviet Union broke up, I mean, they went through a decade of absolute...
The issue is civilians are likely to be hurt regardless of what will cause a lot more pain than sanctions. Well, of course. I think the idea is that what they're saying is, like, what can be done to try to avoid a war and, and not, have that be the actual outcome. And all in all, I wouldn't know, just because, all the very specific nuances of everything, I'm not going to know, just right off the top of my head. Sanctions would be created, should be created to minimize impact to civilians, crack down hard on Russian fossil fuels is the best option. I honestly do think that is the best option. Like, if you want to try to, I think if you want to, because I'm not inherently against sanctions, but they have to be targeted very specifically that minimizes impact on civilians and the general society, of that country.
I do agree on some of the
And like I think the fossil fuel industry is, especially in Russia, is the best place to hit because they're looking to hyper expand in the Arctic. And like they actually think climate change is a good thing because of the permafrost loss in the north and the Arctic and shit, so they can actually have an easier time drilling for fucking oil. So they're looking to expand fossil fuels and shit. So if anything, like not only should their fossil fuel industry be sanctioned, but it should be shut the fuck down as far as I'm concerned.
They have even less control over their media, and that's something too for Americans. But I guess what I want to know is like, let's say this plays out the way, I don't know, maybe 1 in 3, 1 in 4 you'd expect it happens. Russia invades Ukraine. They take eastern Ukraine, and moving past the river, moving further west, it's too difficult. It's not worth it. So you have several months of skirmishes at the river's border, and then you have like calls for an armistice, whatever. We pull NATO back. What do you do if Russia continues its behavior? Because it's not just defensive, right? Russia does propaganda campaign shit all over the place. From attempted coups, not saying we don't do this, mind you, but from attempted coups to, paying off media figures to supporting secessionist movements, they have a very advanced, very sophisticated,
at least he caveated that we do this too.
Geopolitical strategy of essentially psyoping, Again, not to say we don't do this, but they engage in it to soften countries up for invasion. We tend to do it to soften countries up for McDonald's franchising deals. Not to say that there isn't an issue with that, but we're not prepping Mexico.
I mean, I would say at least to that in order to especially maximize a lot of fucking American corporations' expansion into these places, you kind of have to make sure that their government's okay with that. And if they're not, then well, what do you have to do? You kind of have to make sure that you take it over and kind of like soften them up for not literal hardcore invasion, but kind of soften them up just in other ways.
Annexation. If they continue,
well, sometimes hardcore straight up invasions like in Iraq and Middle East.
They're doing to make the world weak to their behavior. You had the Russiagate stuff, of course, over here where they were spreading disinfo in America, and you have the broader. There was that stuff the UK figured out where they were like planning that coup. And if you go to any Eastern European country, any citizen of any of those countries will be able to tell you about their country.
Like Russiagate was known to be debunked.
Soviet Union, Russia, and how they've tried to delegitimize their government. If they keep doing, and this seems aggressive, not defensive. If they keep doing it, what do? What happens if the bargaining chips aren't enough?
So if that happens, then once they hit a NATO country, if they keep expanding and they eventually go into a NATO country, batten down the hatches, all bets are off, and you're looking best case scenario at like global economic warfare, but worst case scenario, that's when you're in World War III. That's when that happens, and there's no avoiding it.
What about before they hit the original NATO borders? Because there are still hundreds of millions of people between Russia and the original borders of NATO.
Well, that's when, like I said, the only things I put on the table right now, given the facts of the situation, are arming Ukraine, arming post-Soviet states insofar as they'd like to be armed, and axing the pipeline. If they start, like, let's say they're not in the NATO state.
I'm not even necessarily comfortable giving them arms either.
What we both expect would happen, which is they're going to stay east of the river. Well, that's probably when you put on the table exactly.
Like, just leave that shit to food and medicine.
Maybe a harsher set of sanctions in order to try to get them to not do that. But that's why this is such a paradox more generally, is because if you're the president and you're sitting in the Oval Office and these are the facts that are presented to you, it's like, God, what do you do? That's such a difficult decision because you really are now having the conversation about actions that, in their mind might merit some sort of World War III level response, and nobody wants a World War III level response.
Not comfortable arming neo-Nazis.
So like
yeah, because also there's literal fucking neo-Nazi organizations and paramilitary groups and, within Ukraine and the Ukrainian military. So to arm, Ukraine would be to arm, honestly, to some extent, literal neo-Nazis. So, like the most infamous is the Azov Battalion. And they were literally full on integrated into the Ukrainian military. So it's just like,
to avoid that.
Seems like they're the problem, huh? Seems like some Navy SEAL shit might be the only solution we have past the point. We can't invade Russia ever. It's not possible for us to do so unless we have access to some technology I am not aware of. You know, if they just
Probably.
settle down and learn to be compliant like the entire world had to, even to an extent America as well, because, you know, we have trade relations we have to maintain that we can't if we invade otherwise sovereign nations, like, say, our neighbors, Mexico and Canada. We have to, these days, America is so cuffed by geopolitics that we have to invade countries like Afghanistan. My God. Russia, clearly, unbecoming by the modern
Because they're easily
order,
exploitable.
thinks,
That's not being cuffed.
Ukraine is an acceptable target, which to me is just wild. I mean, there are so many people.
And why is that
they
a bad
could get
thing, even if
before
that
they
was
hit
the case?
The original borders, like Poland. Poland's like a strong ally, you know.
And far right as fuck.
Don't you think that, like, the way that Obama handled it when they took Crimea, don't you think ultimately that was the best way to handle it because it didn't lead to widespread further conflict? And if I'm not mistaken, I think it was actually France that negotiated an armistice with that eventually, a ceasefire with that eventually. But don't you think that was actually handled in a very effective way by the global community, given that happened in 2014 and here we are in 2022, so we're 8 years later before we had another problem pop up?
No, I think we're still kind of doing the appeasement thing, basically. We should have realized Russia never had any intention of becoming a modern country like the rest of the post-Soviet Union nations. They wanted to be their own little undead zombie empire. And it's
What the fuck do you think these other fucking modern nations are, like, when it comes to, like, the U.S.? Like, the U.S. is like a little zombie empire itself. I mean, huh? It's like Russia definitely wants to try to, like, why do you think they're trying to expand a place like in the Arctic? Because that's their attempt to modernize, further, industrialize further and shit, become more of a modern country, like, huh?
States, which means that they get bombed the next day. So most of our military occupation globally is a product of a kind of shared alliance. Obviously that's not in its totality. The majority of the aggression and imperialism we engage in is born off the back of our economy. But Russia doesn't have an economy. They can't do that. And while I don't like neocolonialism, I would sure as hell prefer neocolonialism with McDonald's to regular colonialism with hundreds of millions of people having their territories annexed. So if Russia insists
why not
on
neither?
playing the game with the old set of rules, I don't know what you can do. I feel like we all just should have sanctioned.
Why must everything be in a binary black and white? Like, no.
They need to be quiet and then went in there and picked up what was left, because I don't even know if that would work. Maybe severe sanctions, they would consider this to be sufficient to declare nuclear war, because they have said that. They've said that being cut off from the global banking system would be considered an act of war on their part, and if you're declaring war on a
isn't that kind of contradictory to them not wanting to be a modern nation?
I don't know what the solution is. I just know that we have to be
being cut off
really
from
careful about
the modern world is like
the
an act of war in their mind.
Employ to defend their unjustifiable behavior.
Yeah, I mean, look. My main point is, I think that some of the asks are actually reasonable. Some of the asks are not. Some of the asks are insane. The idea of, the buffer states, post-Soviet states, cannot even be armed? No, that's ridiculous. Any sovereign nation has the right to be armed and
Why should
defend
they be
themselves.
buffer states, though? If they're sovereign nations.
I mean, okay, but who says that we have to arm them? Can't they arm themselves?
Well, see, this is what we talked about before, though, because I think there actually is a little bit of a paradox between if you do...
I just don't see any fucking fruit in getting involved in any of this shit.
I think that would reduce tensions, and I do think
Like, as far as I'm concerned, the U.S. doesn't have any fucking reason to be involved. But yeah, just because, whatever weird European bullshit that is going on over there, it's like, yeah, I guess we're involved too now.
Of course, they're not going to like it, but you got to understand, boss, I'm not...
Also, we're the world police, so we have to get involved now.
That there is a genuine paradox there, because on the one hand, I support, these sovereign nations' decision to make their own decisions. They have the ability, and they should be able to make their own decisions. But by the same token, that that might
As some
end up
Russian and
being
Kyle,
something
the
that
US shouldn't
gets
be
in the way of
involved.
broader
It
peace.
should be
So
Europe
it's like,
handling it. Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. There's no good answers there in my mind. I get it, and I get it. If they want to, hey, we want to be part of NATO, and NATO wants to welcome them in,
The thing I'm
okay,
curious
but there might be
about-
consequences to that.
I feel like you would never take this stance if America was in Russia's position. The idea that, oh, sure, we're undermining the sovereignty of these sovereign nations because America is being, you know, is engaging in imperialism. They're paranoid. You know, we want them to not do it. I've seen quite a lot of your content, so I can say, I think with great confidence, you would never say that. There is something different about Russia. It's the same reason why you're concerned about what Russia thinks of the likelihood of
It's
NATO's
different
invasion.
this time.
You would laugh at anyone who told you that America should invade, like, Iran because Americans are afraid of Iran.
It's not like other times. It's
There's
different this
something
one.
different about Russia. You have a different set of considerations.
I disagree.
A different
No.
threshold. You wouldn't say that about the states.
But hold
though.
on, but hold on. So I've actually, when it comes to the issue of democratically choosing what to do in the context of the U.S., I've said, I think we should do everything we possibly can to avoid any, state deciding of their own volition that they want to withdraw from the United States of America. But I have said, if push comes to shove and we've tried everything else and all else fails and Texas decided to vote to leave the United States of America, I mean, I can't necessarily oppose that. So I think I hold a similar standard for both the U.S. and Russia and anybody when it comes to this stuff. The only thing I'm pointing out, and I'm not presenting an answer to this, I'm just pointing out that if you accept that some of the asks about NATO's eastward expansion are reasonable, and I do accept that, I think some of them are reasonable, then this is a paradox between if the buffer states remain buffer states, we might be able to have peace. If they're not buffer states and they voluntarily choose to join NATO, that's good insofar as democracy is a good thing and sovereign nations deciding what they want on their own is a good thing, but I'm just saying that might actually get in the way of peace. I'm not even taking a position on that. I'm just saying that
I
that's a
understand
genuine
that.
paradox that exists.
But the dynamic that you're posing is not one I feel like I've heard.
I
you
don't
pose
disagree with
before in
Kyle on
other
this.
comparable situations, because, for example, the biggest threat to peace right now is Russia. So you could phrase this from the opposite angle just as well. The reasonable asks of Ukraine.
Yeah, like America
is to have
isn't.
NATO in their country because they are
Like,
currently
oh my
about
god.
to
There's like a
be invaded.
trifecta of who's the biggest threats to
And,
world
you know,
peace right
it is a
now.
paradox
America,
at the
Russia, and
end of the
China,
day, like,
honestly, as far as I'm concerned, in that
undermine the
order.
sovereignty of Russia, and like deny them.
Because the US
ability
getting
to
fuckedy
invade
with,
by,
you
like, sanctioning
know,
their
all
country.
this,
If
you
we're
know,
talking
shit
about
going on in Europe,
supplanting the
you know, honestly
sovereignty of
exacerbates a lot further
nations
incitation of
to
war
appeal to the desires of others, like
than whatever the
I feel
conflict's
like
going
that's
on
not
over there at the
something
moment.
Here, not just you, but people on the left engage in with an affirmative perspective from America. Should countries around the world be forced into compliance with the World Bank and IMF because the alternative would be unrest caused by America funding their dictators? You would say no. America does fund dictators, as you pointed out in this conversation, and we fund them because their corruption makes them amenable to Western business interests. But hey, at least they're not shaking the boat, right? Stirring the pot. If we're going to make this argument, like, sorry, sovereign nations, you know, bigger countries are like demand peace, and you're on the bargaining table. That this is not a trade we'd be willing to make for the sake of the United States, and we're cool. Russia's lame. We should be. I don't know.
That is the most reductive thing. Oh my god.
I mean, I could infer things here. I understand the left has a tendency to, like, you know, America bad, everything else good. Like, that's a first position.
No,
you know?
no.
But
Dude, you're not.
Such
you're
a
not
fucking
having a
tribalistic
conversation.
mentality with everything about this shit.
I don't know how
It's like,
to make it clear.
yeah, Russia lame, we good. Everyone on left say America bad, everything else good. It's like, what are you, like a literal fucking chimp?
Give a perspective that is just trying to objectively describe a paradox that I think is real. You're insisting on.
That's why I don't really take
Vosh
Vosh that seriously.
Describing the paradox as such.
Because
So,
he,
I mean, I'll
like,
say it again,
I
don't
don't
know
think
how
he
much
takes
you do
any of this
want to
shit
say.
seriously at all. As much as he tries to
you do have a
pontificate
position.
like he
You said that
does.
You want NATO to retreat to its original borders. You do have a position on the paradox.
But I acknowledge that maybe the right thing is for Ukraine to, if they voluntarily choose, we want to be part of NATO. Who am I to say no to that? All I'm saying is that might actually
Sure.
spark a broader problem. So maybe I'm more agnostic than I initially laid out in that video, but I think that there are two competing principles there. One is holding up the the right of sovereign nations to make their own decisions on the international stage, and the other one is hopefully avoiding a conflict that might genuinely lead to World War III. And honestly, I have to say, I think that anybody who doesn't acknowledge that that's a real paradox there is just not looking at the situation as objectively as possible.
Look, don't get me wrong. At the end of the day, the ultimate goal is to prevent World War III. Nuclear Armageddon is the greatest possible bad. Like
that's sort of the point I was trying
Oh
to
my
make.
god, I like this. I love this fear mongering about this. Wait, what the hell? Why can't Blair White stop lying? Because she's a fucking weirdo. And there you go, boom. She's a like insecure trans person who's like also transphobe. There. Anyway, but like, I mean, like I really like this just seriously reductive, like thinking that Vosh does so fucking often and shit. Because honestly, it's just like Kyle's not wrong. I mean, despite what his overall positions might be on it, it's like, yeah, you kind of have to look at this in the most objective way possible. And honestly, the U.S. is fucking, especially considering its more historical, like, imperialistic ventures and shit, does not do anything good in this, in any of this. Especially, on the virtue of, we're cool and Russia's lame. Ugh. It's like, oh, got him. Owned. It's just like, yeah, and yet he'll like spend a long time and a lot, and quite a while, pontificating, talking a lot of big words, but then he just kind of as reductively put down as, we good, they bad. Why the left say we bad, they good? It's just like, what? It's just, I mean, honestly, it legit is just a very hyper-Americanized centric fucking way of thinking. I mean, it is, just an element of American exceptionalism just kind of seeded in. It just is. Like, he doesn't like that because he thinks, lefties that, called shit out like that are just, America literally is all bad and anything that isn't America is all good. Oh, is that how it is? It's like, literally no. But, it's like, that's, but it's just because they just can't fucking admit that. It's like, yeah, you just have a very hyper fucking American-centric worldview and you just can't admit it, basically. I mean, where it's like, yeah, America's interests do matter more than, the global interests, but, I mean, for some reason or another, it's just someday, I guess people like Vosh just can't admit it. So I can't necessarily take him so seriously. Especially when it's so hyperly reductively put, in some of the ways that he's, kind of said, mentioned in his little talk of Kyle. It's like, I mean, it's just kind of like stupid, kind of like childlike thinking about it, really. It's like, we good, they bad. Me. I live here because this is better. I mean, it's like, I don't necessarily agree with any of them, at least when it comes to direct involvement. Like, the only involvement I can see, acceptable is really just, providing food and medicine aid. And that's about it. Like, hey, we're going to send in, civilian cargo craft, just full of crates of medicine and food and various supplies of the nature. And, have that distributed amongst, the populace of Ukraine that's most heavily impacted. There you go. Just have, like, a very neutral approach of it. I mean, just kind of be the people in the background that's like the meds, like the medic crews and referees that are just like, picking people up on the sidelines and shit, you know what I mean? Just like that's about as much as I think our involvement should be, if there should be any. But nothing else besides that. Oh damn, this report uploaded video. Something to check out here later tonight. Flint still doesn't have clean drinking water. And so Jordan Sheridan from Status Quo. Nice. It's always nice to see that Jordan Sheridan's still out there fighting a good fight. Honestly, low-key, like, I think when TYT really, like, kind of just collapsed into just the liberal slog that it ended up kind of becoming, or whatever the fuck it is now. I don't even bother looking at their shit anymore. Like, I think a part of that was when they kicked George Sheridan off, because he legit was probably one of the best things about TYT for quite a while. Like, because he would actually go to, like, the front lines, so to speak, of these different things that are happening around the country, like with the Standing Rock protests that happened for months on end. He straight up would be posted there for weeks on end, just, you know, posting videos and shit of him just being out there, doing interviews with different people, you know, having drone footage. Like, there was some crazy fucking shit that was, you know, revealed just with some of his, you know, documentation alone going out there. So, I mean, also, there, you know, Flynn, amongst other different things, like, he actually goes out of his way to, like, go to these places, and he still does that with Status Quo, with his own little independent thing that he has going on now. So, actually, a lot of, when January 6th happened, they were there too, George Sheridan and Sasku, and they, mainstream media, like, a lot of different outlets, like CNN and shit, asked if they could use their footage and use their videos, and basically didn't give them any fucking credit for it at all. They just used it like it was theirs. And it was like, what? It's like, yeah, hey, can we use your videos and your footage and stuff? Thanks. By the way, we're not gonna say it's yours. Just like we let you know. But yeah, Status Quo is pretty great. Anyway, let's kind of top off this last little bowl here. Then I'll have to work because I've been called in. I mean, I was expecting it anyway. I already wanted it because I need my goddamn money. I want my money. I want my money, damn it. Money. Gonna be Mr. Krabs about it, low-key. I wonder when we're all gonna pull a Squidward, though. Honestly, looking back at it, that is my favorite episode. When Squidward goes on strike. Oh, man, I didn't realize how subliminal that episode was, because even as a kid, I liked it. At least at the time, not for what it was, but goddamn, that SpongeBob episode is so pro-labor, and I fucking love it. I love fucking Squidward. You know what? Hold on. Is Squidward's fucking speech, like, on here in full? Squid on strike speech. Is this it? Is this the full one? It is!
Hey, what's that guy talking about? I don't know, but he's got a megaphone.
I know what it is, and I like it.
We'll dismantle oppression board by board. We'll saw the foundation of big business in half, even if it takes an eternity. With
yes!
support, we will send the hammer of the people's will crashing through the windows of Mr. Krabs' house of servitude.
Yes. Yes. Go King. Go off, Squidward. Go off, King. Anyway, I'll go off and do my little grind, as I got a little motivation to do so. So anyway, I'll be back, of course, later tonight, as per usual. So, peace out for now. And of course, I'll be around.